Hello, hello, this is Warren Redlick. If you are a Tesla investor, right now you're probably feeling pretty good about the performance of Tesla stock. Tesla stock is up to $396 a share almost. You can see it right here. The chart is going up. It is up 58% in the past 6 months. It's up about 200% in the past, I think it's 5 years. So the stock, people will say, oh, the stock's been flat for 5 years. No, the stock is up over 200% in the past 5 years. It's certainly down below its all-time high. If you can find a stock that isn't below its all-time high, that's pretty impressive because almost every stock is below its all-time high. But basically, we have some good news here. Thank you, Mark. So we have, this is a positive thing. Now, I will just say it's positive. It looks good. We're hoping this continues to go up. Let's not forget the stock goes up, the stock goes down. It could go down tomorrow. I mean, not tomorrow, today. Well, it's Sunday morning for you guys, so I guess tomorrow. It could go down next week, right? We don't know if it's going up or going down. I'm optimistic. I think there's lots of good things going on. But short term, the stock could go up, the stock could go down. Long term, seems very positive to me that the stock will do really well. I think most people can see that. But, that's one of those challenges in life is figuring out what's going on. So we'll see. Okay, so this is fun to watch. We're going to talk a little bit more about the stock price and some people who got burned, some people who told people to sell, or people who bragged about selling and then they got burned. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk. So the first part of this video is going to be about Tesla. Typical. My friend Optimus here is going to help with that. But once we get past my bits about Tesla, it's going to get a little bit political. It's going to get a little bit emotional. We're going to talk about Charlie Kirk just a little bit and things related to Charlie Kirk a little bit. And then we're going to bring it back to some bright spots, particularly Neuralink. So let's get a little bit more into this. I did want to mention, I just did a live stream a couple days ago about Tesla AI 6 hardware and where I think that might be going. I'm going to play a clip for you now that's a bit from that. That was what Elon talking about, the AI 6 hardware, the chip in Optimus that's coming. I think it's really important for the future of Tesla. So I would encourage you, please check out my previous live stream a couple days ago. Here's Elon talking about that.
It sort of depends on how much you spend on the AI chip in the robot. The AI chip will be pretty expensive. Like that might be like $5,000 or $6,000 of the bill of materials, maybe more.
So that was more than I expected. $5,000 or $6,000 or more for the chip. I thought they were going to be paying about $1,000 for the chip in Optimus. So this suggests that the AI 6 hardware that's coming, I think we're going to be on AI 5 next year, towards the end of next year, maybe earlier, but 2027, 2028, we're going to shift to the AI 6 hardware, which is a big game changer for Tesla. So I'm very, very excited about this. Oh, LJ was just watching me on Herbert. I guess Herbert's video got published. So I think this is another, and my recent live stream talks about a model, a napkin math model for how Tesla's AI 6 hardware could end up becoming a larger business than where I think robotaxi is going to go. I'm going to just in a second talk to you about where I think robotaxi is going to go, or repeat to you what many of you have already heard, but some of you haven't. So let's get into that. There's a guy named Daniel. Somebody else was responding to him, and I saw it, and I wanted to respond to him. Maybe it was Homar's blog responded to him. He said, isn't the valuation of 4 Ubers already priced into the $1.5 trillion market cap of Tesla? How big can the taxi market be? Now, if you follow me, you know I think the taxi market the robo-taxi market can be much bigger than what you're seeing in Uber. And Uber is not a signal for the future of the robo-taxi market. That's you're missing it if you don't get it. So let's just briefly cover that. How big can the taxi market be? There are roughly 2 billion cars in the world. 100 million robo-taxis would replace roughly 500 million cars. So that's not, if you understand that robo-taxis don't just become taxis, but they actually take people out of their cars, that people decide when the price of a robo-taxi ride is less than the price of owning your own car. Yes, when the price of a robo-taxi ride is less than the price of owning your own car, then it will make sense for a lot of people to stop owning cars and ride in robo-taxis instead. And this is hard for people to grasp, but it actually makes a lot of sense. especially when you realize that some people, the average person who owns a car in America spends about 70 cents a mile on their car. But somebody with a DUI on their record, somebody with poor credit, somebody who doesn't drive a lot of miles and amortizes their car over fewer miles, there's certain things that drive up the price per mile. People who drive more expensive cars. So although the average is 70 cents a mile, there's a lot of people who are paying $1 a mile or more. So if you bring the price of a robotaxi ride down to 80 cents, let's say, you're capturing 30% of the market of people who already own cars. And that's assuming the price of owning a car doesn't go up, which it probably will. So I just want to really quick want to address, LJ says that Joe Bhakti was saying the Tesla Model Q, it's not called Model Q. I don't think. Maybe it is. I think it's the Model YS, but we'll get to that. So does Dave Lee. May also boost Q4 as it explodes TAM on lower cost cars. So the story about what's coming, and we're gonna get into Barry. Actually, I'm gonna cover that in a minute because we're gonna be talking about Barry Glack in a minute. And Andre talks about Q3 deliveries. We're gonna get to that. So I just want to go through this. So 100 million robotaxis replace roughly 500 million cars. If the average robotaxi makes $20,000 a year in gross profit, I think the average Uber that's driven full time is making like $100,000 a year in revenue. Okay, so it's not crazy to think that a robotaxi generating half the revenue of an Uber, right? So $50,000. Don't forget the robotaxi is going to drive more hours than the Uber, right? Because the Uber driver is going to drive maybe 8 hours a day, but the robotaxi is going to drive 12, 16 hours a day. So if the average robotaxi makes $20,000 in gross profit times 100 million robotaxis, that's $2 trillion a year. That's in gross profit, not revenue, gross profit. Uber's gross profit in 2024 was 18 billion. So robotaxi alone is 100 Ubers. Robotaxi alone is 100 Ubers. That doesn't count Optimus. Optimus is bigger than robotaxi, much bigger. And then we've got the AI6 chip inference hardware. I think that may actually be bigger than robotaxi. I don't think it's as big as Optimus, but I think it's bigger than it could be bigger than Optimus because the cost per unit is lower. But I think ultimately the AI6 inference model will still be larger than robotaxi and maybe competitive with Optimus. So there's so much growth potential in Tesla. And there's really not a lot of competition that I see that's going to take away from that. In the inference market, maybe. In Optimus market, no. In robotaxi market, no. Okay, another piece of good news, or a couple good pieces of news that happened. Tesla released a video from Megafactory Shanghai, the factory in Shanghai that makes Megapacks. We have a Megapack factory in Lathrop, California, the first one making at scale. You have the one in Shanghai that's already been going, and now you have one coming in Houston. And Tesla did a video about Megablock, which is basically a new Megapack going from 4 megawatt hours to 5 megawatt hours. I haven't figured out how they squeezed an extra megawatt hour into the same volume with lithium iron phosphate, which isn't really great for volume. I haven't figured that one out yet. They didn't say. And then they're combining 4 of them with some additional electronics to have, instead of one Megapack being 4 megawatt hours, now it's 5 megawatt hours, but there's 4 of them, so you've got 20 megawatt hours in one block. And that makes it easier for them to sell them at scale to larger projects. If you just want one Megapack for your business, it doesn't make a difference. But if you have a utility scale project that was using 100 Megapacks, now you have 25 megablocks, and the cost of implementing that is lower, and the speed you can implement it is faster. So that's a big deal. And then this critical detail I think a lot of people missed is that, okay, the Houston factory will be doing Megablocks and the new Megapacks, and the expectation is that'll be 50 gigawatt hours in capacity. And Shanghai and Lathrop are 40 gigawatt hours in capacity. No, Shanghai and Lathrop are going to convert over to the new Megapack and the new Megablock. So they're going to be 50 gigawatt hours each capacity. So we're heading to 150 gigawatt hours of capacity for Megapack. And that's a big boost in the medium term to Tesla. It's not on the level of robotaxi or Optimus or where I think AI6 inference hardware is going, but going to 150 gigawatt hours a year. And so, this is an interesting question we don't know. When does Tesla recognize revenue from projects that have already been installed but haven't had revenue recognition? They said there's 30 gigawatt hours out there that haven't been recognized yet in the Megablock video. Not this video, but in the Megablock video. I think they said they have 30 gigawatt hours out there waiting to be recognized. And I think they've been doing 10 gigawatt hours a quarter. So what if they do their normal 10 gigawatt hours and then they recognize another 10? And now, because at some point we're going to see a breakout in energy storage, and it's going to go from 10 gigawatt hours a quarter to 15 or 20 gigawatt hours a quarter. And ultimately, if you're doing 150 gigawatt hours a year, that's nearly 40 gigawatt hours a quarter. So, but we don't have the production capacity for the 150 yet. We're approaching the production capacity for 80 or 100. But once Houston's rolling and everything switches over, you're going to be at 150 gigawatt hours a year. And that's assuming Shanghai doesn't overproduce, because Shanghai overproduces everything. Mark asks, is energy bigger than cars? When Tesla stops selling cars because they're running robotaxis, then yes, energy will be bigger than cars. I don't think energy is bigger than cars anytime soon. I'm not sure. It's a good question. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Commuter Branch Line. But the energy is something the Barry Glacks get. I don't know how much for a Megapack. I believe a Megapack at scale is around $1 million. If you buy one, it's more. If you buy 10, it might be a little less than $1 million a piece. So I think on average, they're getting about $1 million a Megapack. And it may go up with the new Megapack being 5 gigawatt hours instead of 4. It used to be 2 million. And the price of batteries in China, there's been so much battery production and demand has been lower than expected, not just for Tesla, but for Chinese EVs and others, that the supply of LFP battery, I've actually been looking at buying LFP batteries for my pod car project. I may talk about that later. And I'm surprised at how cheap it is to buy LFP battery cells. Like BYD Blade battery cells, I can buy them on a website called Lazada, a popular website in Thailand. So anyway, Megapack, good news. So anyway, the fun, Jim Whitehead, is Jim here? Jim isn't here yet. Jim is usually in the chat. He created this image of the bear. I love the smell of Tesla bear shorts burning in the morning. I turned it into a video using Grok Imagine. If you're not using Grok, please start. I recommend using Grok over ChatGPT and Gemini. I use Gemini as my backup. I use ChatGPT a little bit, but Grok is my favorite AI. And Grok Imagine able to generate pictures and videos, pretty cool. It's a fun feature. It's not. I don't think it's that useful, but it's a fun feature. It's fun if you're a. Jared says, I almost spit my coffee out. Connect sooner to the grid, so new Mega Block will allow earlier revenue recognition. I'm not sure that allows earlier revenue recognition, but it may have lower latency. That may be an improvement. Buy your Megapack. Good. Mark, are you going to buy a Megapack? Mark's always saying he can't afford a robotaxi ride. Now he's buying Megapacks. So anyway, I just had some fun with this. There's a lot of people who, if you're looking back at the share price is now up to close to $400 a share. And if it continues, I think already at this point a lot of shorts are getting burned. But as robotaxi scales, and I didn't put this in my slides, but apparently Nevada has licensed Tesla to start running robotaxis in Nevada. And I think they're expecting them to run in the Las Vegas loop, but that's small volume. I think you're going to see Tesla robotaxis running in Nevada generally. So you've got California, you've got Texas, you've got Nevada. I think Arizona will come soon. I think Florida will come soon. By the end of the year, I think we're going to see at least a few more states. And then into next year, you're going to start to see a significant increase in both the number of states that allow robotaxi. I heard New York might be on the list, which surprised me because I think New York would resist. But you're going to see more robotaxis in more states, and then you're going to see a higher volume of robotaxis. And there's a rumor, an unverified rumor, that FSD version 14 has shipped to some employees. I haven't seen any verification of that rumor, so I'm not sure it's true. Do I know how robotaxi will self-charge? I don't think there's any current plan for robotaxi to self-charge. I think Cybercab is intended to only charge wirelessly, which means it just backs up over a charger and it charges automatically. If you're talking about the Model Y robotaxi or some other robotaxi that's not Cybercab, then someone will plug it in. Maybe an Optimist will plug it in. Maybe a human will plug it in. Humans don't cost that much. If you have a human plugging in cars at $20 an hour and you have a charging station, they're going to plug in at least 20 cars an hour. Probably plug in 30 or 40 cars an hour. So what is that, 50 cents a charge? It's not that expensive. That doesn't add up to that much. So let's go back. I wanted to get to Barry. Barry Glack, everybody's favorite Barry Glack. Some call him Gary Black for some reason. I call him Barry Glack. I'm not sure how it came about that people think his name is Gary Black just because he puts Gary Black as his name. Barry Glack is a much better name. So Barry says, let's not kid ourselves. Tesla has been strong the past few days. If you know why Tesla is strong the past few days, why didn't you buy the stock when you saw it coming? Why didn't you see it coming? These guys will tell you why the stock is up when they didn't buy. If you knew the stock, if you understand why the stock is up, why didn't you buy? Because you're just giving us an answer afterwards. He says, let's not kid ourselves. Tesla's been strong the past few days, not because of progress on robotaxi. How do you know that? But because every hedge fund has come to the realization that Tesla will crush 3Q delivery estimates in 2 weeks. As a result, buyers trying to get in front of the expiring tax credit. As volume is pulled forward from the fourth quarter, this will very likely reverse in the fourth quarter. We expect fiscal year deliveries will be down 10% year on year. Well, then why would hedge funds be buying the stock if they think that year on year deliveries will be down? The hedge funds are buying ahead of good earnings numbers or good revenue numbers for this quarter, but they know that the revenue, and everybody's going to know that the revenue numbers will be bad and the earnings numbers will be bad for the fourth quarter. Why would hedge funds buy if everybody sees all this? It doesn't make sense. I'm not claiming I know why the stock is up. I don't know why the stock is up. I think that one possible explanation is people are starting to see the robotaxi story. I'm not saying my story is better than Barry Glack's story, but his story doesn't make sense. Number one, if you knew it, why didn't you buy the stock ahead of this? If you're so smart, you should have bought the stock ahead of this surge. But only now that the surge happened, now you have a story about why it surged. If you're so smart, you would have bought it. But second of all, like, this story doesn't add up. If the second part is true, then the hedge funds wouldn't be buying because they would anticipate the problems in fourth quarter. It's like you're the only one who sees the fourth quarter. Like a lot of us think there's fourth quarter problems. And somebody mentioned earlier, I think maybe it was that Joe Bhakti was talking about the more affordable Model Y, that there's a more affordable model coming. Now, my prediction, Dave Lee's prediction, we've seen a Model Y L in China, and I believe it's hitting Australia. It'll probably come here to Thailand. Model Y L, 6-passenger Model Y. It's, I think, 6 or 7 inches longer than the current Model Y. A lot of people, including myself, think that Tesla will introduce a Model Y S, a smaller Model Y, probably shorter, probably 4 inches, 5-6 inches shorter than the current Model Y. I compare it to the BYD Atto 3, which is a very popular EV here in Thailand and other places. The Atto 3 is significantly smaller than the Model Y. Simple comparison, Model Y has about 2,100 liters of cargo space. The BYD Atto 3 has, I think, 1,300 liters of cargo space, so significantly smaller. So if Tesla brings it down from 2,100 liters to 1,500 or 1,600 liters, that's a big drop in size. It's big enough that you might get that 20% reduction in cost that allows you to sell the car for 20% less, right? Which brings the price down to be it's still not competitive with the Atto 3, which sells for around $23,000 here in Thailand, I think under $20,000 in China, but brings it down enough that some people who were thinking about buying something like the Atto 3 might say, hey, I'd rather have a Tesla. And apparently the Model Y L is selling very strong in China. And then I also think there's a chance that Tesla also does a Model Y XL. People think I'm joking about Americans' weight. Just to be clear, I am 6 feet tall, 182 centimeters. I weigh 98 kilograms today. That's just like 215 pounds. And Model Y is big. Like, there's plenty of room in Model Y for people my size. There aren't that many Americans that are that much bigger than me. Model Y is already big enough. But if you want to add a third row and you want to have more space inside, I think Americans would like the Model Y L, but they'd like a Model Y XL that adds a few more inches. Maybe they even make it a little bit wider, because you can't make it wider in Asia and Europe, but you can make it wider in America. So you added a couple inches of width, you add 4 or 5 more inches of length on top of it, you get a much more usable third row. I think that's viable. And I'm not saying that will happen. It's just sort of like an offhand prediction that maybe Fremont makes the Model Y XL and Texas makes the Model Y S or something like that. Just looking at the chat here for a second. I had induction charging for quite a while, yeah. I'm sure they're working on engineering the wireless charging so they can get higher charging, more efficiency. It's already very efficient, by the way, but higher charging, more efficiency. They decided not to do wireless charging with Cybertruck because the height of Cybertruck makes it hard to get close to the wireless charger. So I don't think we're going to be seeing that. Matt Burns says new model October 1. I think early October is probably likely. I could almost see the end of September because they've got all the sales out of the way. So maybe they announce it before the end of September, just as an offhand guess. A great third quarter in the new less if there is and so I expect that the Model Y S will sell well in Asia and Europe, and the Model Y XL. Like, I don't even know if I would make a Model Y S for the US because the demand for a smaller EV, a smaller car in the US is low. I've looked, try to find a model that's significantly smaller than Model 3 and Model Y that sells in high volume. There's not a lot. There's not a lot that sells in high volume in the US. So you're going to get 20% of a market that's not very large. But Model Y XL would reach into a much larger and much higher value market. So my theory is Model Y S for Europe and Asia, Model Y XL for America. That's a theory. Where does JP? Oh, Jordan Peterson is coming. Jordan, we're not far from Jordan Peterson. Thank you for asking about that. Talk about Jordan Peterson. It's a little bit emotional, mental stuff that I've been going through as a result of Charlie Kirk and Irina, I forget her last name, Zarushka, the recent murders that got me down a little bit, coming back up. We're going to get to that in a minute. So let's move past Barry Glack. Jeremy, another guy who went negative on Tesla. I believe he told people to sell Tesla on July 2nd when the stock was trading at $315 a share. Tesla's up $80 since then, more than a 25% gain. So I just think, and I don't think I included this post in my slides, but there are people. It's very hard to make predictions about any stock in the short term. So he made a prediction. Barry Glack made predictions. They're both wrong. I think even people who are bullish and they say, oh, the stock's going to be $1,000 by the end of the year. Probably not. I'm not saying it's impossible and I'd love it to be true, but probably not. Right? So making short-term predictions is hard. But the one thing we know is long-term, you never bet against Elon. It's never wise to bet against Elon. In the long term, it always goes against you. So, yeah, anyway, just that key point. This guy in July 2nd said, Tesla investors, you still have time to get out. July 2nd, stock trading at 315. So many stocks with better risk-reward profiles the next 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years. Tesla's reward profile in the next 3 to 5 years is astonishing. I don't know how you don't know that. But regardless, his short-term call was dead wrong. You can see the stock is up from 315 to 395. 396, really. $80 a share up, 25% gain after this guy told you to sell. Really quick on this, turn a little bit political for a second, but this is, about Tesla. We have a shareholder vote coming on Elon's compensation package. And Bernie, he had a good, I do want to say Bernie made a good statement about the shooting of Charlie Kirk and how we need to tone down the rhetoric and political violence is wrong. He gave probably the best statement I've seen from any Democrat on political violence. I'm not saying they're all, a lot of them I have some criticisms of. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but Bernie gave the best statement on that. But Bernie is an anti-capitalist. I think he's pretty open about being an anti-capitalist. He calls himself a democratic socialist. I think that's a rebranding of communism. Kamala Harris, by the way, voted left of Bernie. So when I call them communists, I'm not trying to be insulting. I'm describing reality. Bernie openly embraced the Cuban communists, the Soviet communists, and he's always anti-capitalist. He's always criticizing capitalism. So I pointed this out. He points out here 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Half of older workers have nothing in the bank, as if somehow Elon took money out of their bank accounts. As if Elon is forcing 60% of Americans to not work longer hours and pay high rent. Like, did Elon raise rent? What did Elon do that raised rents? What did Elon do that caused inflation? None of it. Elon is lowering prices in many ways. Elon is doing lots of things that make the economy run better. People living paycheck to paycheck is not Elon's fault, and they were living paycheck to paycheck before. And half of older workers having nothing in the bank. That's not Elon's fault. But here's Bernie, and Bernie's cracking on Elon being poised to become the world's first trillionaire. And both the Washington Post and Bernie made this claim that Elon's compensation package would make him a trillionaire. So I want to make this point before I get into the top part. Elon owns about 15% of Tesla. If Elon achieves everything in the compensation package, which takes the market cap to $8.5 trillion, Elon owns 15% of Tesla. 15% of 8.5 trillion is 1.2 trillion. Elon's a trillionaire without the compensation package, and that doesn't include what he has in SpaceX, and that doesn't include what he has in Neuralink, doesn't include what he has in the Boring Company, doesn't include what he has in XAI and X. Elon has a lot of wealth, and the compensation package doesn't make him a trillionaire. It might make him a 2 trillionaire or a 3 trillionaire, but it doesn't make him a trillionaire. He'll already be a trillionaire before he gets the compensation, because he doesn't get the compensation until 7.5 years from now. So they'll be well past the $8.5 trillion market cap by that point if he accomplishes all of that. Anyway, the point is that Bernie opposes the American capitalist system that has massively improved quality of life for everyone, including the poor and working class, not just in America. You think about all the jobs that have been created in China to sell goods to America and many other countries that sell goods to America, all because America is such a capitalist success, right? Brought probably 1 billion people around the world out of grinding, awful poverty, right? Because of capitalism. Socialism doesn't bring anyone out of poverty. Socialism destroys innovation. You don't get Facebook, you don't get Google, you don't get robots, you don't get reusable rocketry, you don't get electric cars with socialism. None of that happens without capitalism. Capitalism makes life better for everyone. Capitalism is going to deliver us sustainable abundance. Socialism delivers us unsustainable misery, or sustained misery, I guess. So I just wanted to touch on that. So we're going to get to Jordan Peterson now. And to lead into that, because of the recent murders of Irina and Charlie, I kind of got down a little bit. And little background, one of my children, my daughter lives in New York City, rides the subway. So a woman getting stabbed on a train, on a transit system, very disturbing. Young woman getting, my daughter's same age, a young woman getting stabbed on a train and killed. Ugh. And then my other daughter rides transit at her university and wants to live in New York City later. And I think a lot of parents saw that girl murdered and they saw their own daughter. And the media has been very callous about it and ignoring it and hiding it. When the Republicans made a big issue of it, the media said that the Republicans were racist, instead of saying maybe we should try to stop all these murders. You know, maybe there's a problem there that needs to be addressed, and instead that the problem was Republicans criticizing it. So anyway, but I was bothered by it. I actually slept very badly 2 nights in a row. I finally had more sleep. I didn't sleep well last night, but I slept better last night. By the way, it's 9:30 p.m. here. I'm going to be going to sleep in, I don't know, an hour or so after. It takes me a little while to calm down after the live stream. But I did this poll, how have the murders of Irina and Charlie affected you mentally and emotionally? And 8.5% they're okay, 33% said it's bothering me, 40% said very upset, and 17% were in a dark place. I was between very upset and in a dark place. I pretty much was in a dark place. And I'll talk a little bit more about later, but I do want to mention I'm not in a dark place now. My wife and I had our anniversary dinner a few days ago. Our first anniversary, very, very happy moment. My lovely wife is right over there. And I think that's a really good thing. But it made me crave Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is someone who motivates me, makes me feel, gives me a little bit of centering. I think he's very good in a lot of ways. So I'm going to play a few Jordan Peterson clips just to give you a hint of that, and talk about them on the way as we go through them.
Battle not with monsters, lest ye become a monster.
Yeah.
And if you gaze into the abyss gazes also into you.
Right. But I would say, bring it on, knowing that he's absolutely right. But if you gaze into the abyss long enough, you see the light, not the darkness.
Are you sure about that?
I'm betting my life on it.
Yeah, it's a heck of a bet.
Well, that's...
Because it might distort your mind to where all you see
is abyss.
Is abyss.
Yeah.
Is the evil in this world.
Well, then I would say you haven't looked long enough.
So I was pretty close to looking into the abyss, or I was looking into the abyss for a couple of days. I was able to set it aside during the day and do the things that I do, whether it's going to the gym, have a good workout, do stuff with my nieces or my wife, or a lot of things going on in life that I've been dealing with. And it's not so bad that it was stopping me from getting those things done. Whether it's cooking, going out to a meal, whatever, I was enjoying life, but I had a lot of moments where I was just staring into that abyss. And I didn't stare anywhere near long enough to see the light in the abyss. Fortunately, I was not trapped in the abyss the way that these guys are talking about. But I just think that's a start of and there's so many people that talk about that. So many other people on the left will talk about Jordan Peterson this negative way. If you watch these clips and listen to how he talks, and if you watch a lot more, same thing with Charlie Kirk. You'll hear people say these nasty things about Charlie Kirk. They'll say nasty things about Jordan Peterson. Spend an hour watching video of them talking about things, and not interviews or talk shows, but just watch Charlie Kirk talking to college students and college professors, whoever comes up while he's sitting out there. Watch Jordan Peterson lecture to his students about some of the stuff that I'm going to show you here. Listen to him talk about human psychology, about how you can be a better person, which is what he's going to talk about in the next couple of clips is really part of what drives me a lot, and what I think hopefully drives a lot of people to do better in life. So let's go on.
That I've been talking to, not about rights, but about responsibility, right? Because you can't have the bloody what are you doing? You can't have the conversation about rights without the conversation about responsibility, because your rights are my responsibility. That's what they are, technically. So you just can't have only half of that discussion, and we're only having half that discussion. And the question is, well, what the hell are you leaving out if you only have that half of the discussion? And the answer is, well, you're leaving out responsibility. And then the question is, well, what are you leaving out if you're leaving out responsibility? And the answer might be, well, maybe you're leaving out the meaning of life.
That's pretty heavy. I think he's pitching back against, there's more of this clip coming, but I feel like he's pitching back here against, if you watch more of the clip, what the left always talks about is rights. The right to food, the right to, low, what is the rent is too damn high. They're always talking about how, everything should be free. And as a friend of mine says, everything should be free. We can all go dancing in the fields. No, it's not just about rights. It's not just about what you're entitled to. It's about what are you required to do? What do you need to do? And this is a big chunk of what Jordan talks about. And that's really important. And if you think the world is just you're entitled to stuff, well, if you're entitled to something, well, somebody has to provide it to you. If you're entitled to free health care, does that mean the doctor is your slave? And you think I'm being silly. I'm not being silly. If you think that you have a right to free health care, who's providing the health care? Who's paying for it? Are you taking money out of one of your pockets and putting it in the other pocket? You're taking money out of somebody else's pocket. Why is that guy working if he's working for you instead of for himself? And I feel like the people who are hung up on what they're entitled to are missing, well, what are you delivering? So-called in the dating world, what do you bring to the table? I think this is really important stuff, but let's go a little more.
That's what it looks like to me. It's like, here you are, suffering away. What makes it worthwhile? Rights? You're completely out. You have no idea what it's almost impossible to describe how bad an idea that is. Responsibility. That's what gives life meaning. It's like lift a load. Then you can tolerate yourself, right? Because look, you're useless, easily hurt, easily killed. Why should you have any self-respect? That's the story of the fall. Pick something up and carry it. Make it heavy enough so that you can think, yeah, well, useless as I am, at least I could move that from there to there.
So personally, I'm someone who carries a load, right? There are a lot of young men out there that we talk about who are living in mom's basement playing video games. Unfortunately, I think the shooter who killed Charlie Kirk was one of those young men who played a lot of video games, lived in his parents' house. And maybe he moved out and was living with his transsexual boyfriend or son. I don't even know where that goes. I don't know the details on that. Don't hold me to that. But the danger of preaching rights and not responsibility is that you don't teach people that they have to figure out how to lift a load, how to carry a load. Now, I've always carried a load. It might have been a small load, But at the age of 12, I was delivering newspapers, right? I was riding my bike around at 6 o'clock in the morning or something, delivering newspaper, carrying a bag slung over my shoulder, delivering newspapers. At 12 years old, right? I've always worked. I worked more, and the principle that Jordan talks about is, look, you're worthless. You're not capable of doing anything. All right, you can make your bed. That's one of the things that people laugh about, but make your bed. Clean up your room. Don't expect your mom to come in and make up your bed and clean your room. Make your bed, clean your room. You can do that. Identify the things you can do and start doing something positive. And then do more. And as you do something, you realize how capable you are. And maybe I could do a little bit more. And then you do a little bit more. Maybe you start helping your family. And he's going to talk about this in the next clip. But there's a lot. But this idea that, and young men struggle with this because the education system he's complaining about in these clips, and maybe parts I've cut out, the education system is telling young men, yeah, especially young white men, you're worthless. You're the problem. Well, you want young people to try. You want young people to do something positive. And if you tell them they're worthless and you tell them they're the problem, then they're not likely to do stuff. And then you end up with, when you have a society of young men who see no future, then you end up with really bad societies and violent crime, and as we just saw, murder. When all this was going on and I was in a dark place, I kind of wanted Jordan Peterson to say something. I was waiting for him to speak up. And apparently he's sick. I don't know the full story there, but he has been quiet and I've been disappointed. I wanted to hear from him. But let's hear a little bit more from him.
That I've been talking.
Sorry, let me look in the chat for a second. Thank you, Amy, for the anniversary wishes. The video audio is a bit too much higher than your voice audio, trying to be helpful. I didn't notice that. I'll look at that on the next clip. Thank you. Jordan involved all people. Kirk, not so much. Kirk, oh, no, that's so false, LJ. It's so false. Charlie Kirk brought black people into his movement. He brought gay people into his movement. He brought Scott Pressler, transgender person, into his movement. He disagreed with them on their personal life choices, the gay people and the transgender people. But if they supported the idea of a strong America and positive values, then he brought them in. This idea that he didn't involve them is absolutely, utterly false. New Thought Recovery says, no, sir, LJ, a lot of hate. Charlie Kirk did not preach hate. Charlie Kirk had open, polite conversations with people. If you think that Charlie Kirk was hateful, then you simply have not watched Charlie Kirk. You've watched little tiny clips that have been fed to you by propaganda machines to make Charlie Kirk look bad. I've watched so much Jordan Peterson, and I've seen so many people say bad things about him. I've watched lots of Charlie Kirk, and I've seen so many people say bad things. It's like, you obviously haven't watched him if you think that. And either you have been chewing on propaganda sources that are wrong, and you should reconsider what you're doing, or you are working for them, and you should not be in my chat. Parents need to raise their kids to be independent, self-reliant. 100%. My kids are largely independent at young ages. Is this yes, this is from his university days, fired up. Yes, that's correct. Stop judging people. Your era was different. This day's money not worth nothing. Young people working hard but can't buy houses and raise a family. It has never been better. Economic life has never been better than it is today. I realize that people are telling you that everything is worse. You don't know what it was like when I'm 59. You don't know what it was like when I was 20. And it was never hard for me, just to be clear. It was never hard for me. I always worked. I had supportive parents. I had parents who made sure I got an education, but it was always hard. It was always hard, and it was harder before. It is easier now than it ever has been. Why Charlie Kirk speak about black people? Was he black? You don't have to be black to talk about black people. You don't have to be a woman to talk about abortion. And you don't have to agree with him. He would have conversations with people who disagree. And he was polite, and they would have polite conversations. The idea that white people can black people talk about white people? You're saying that white people can't talk about black people. Can women talk about men? Like, where you come up with this idea that we can't talk about each other? How is George Carlin, how are all the comedians supposed to tell jokes if they can't talk about people besides themselves? Yes, thank you, Alex, on the photo profile. All right, let's move on to the next clip.
in it for you. That's another thing that we're doing to men that's a very bad idea, and to boys. It's like, you're pathological and oppressive. It's like, fine then, why the hell am I going to play? If that's the situation, if I get no credit for bearing responsibility, you can bloody well be sure I'm not going to bear any.
That's where he's talking about the radical left and the education system telling young white men that they're worthless, that they're the problem. So that's what he's talking about there. And you have to give young men in particular, and he talks about, and I don't think I included the clip, but he talks about the differences between men and women, but you have to give young men the sense that they can do something positive and encourage them to do something positive. If you tell them they're bad and you tell them they're worthless, then you're not motivating them to do something positive.
But then, you know, your life is useless and meaningless, and you're full of self-contempt and nihilism, and that's not good. And so that's why that's what I think's going on at a deeper level with regards to men needing this direction. A man has to decide that he's going to do something. He has to decide that. Yeah, well, you know, partly what you're trying to do in the future authoring process is say, okay, well, what's your highest value? Right? It's the star. It's like, okay, what are you aiming for? You can decide, man. But, you know, there's some criteria. It should be good for you. It should be good for you in a way that facilitates your moving forward. Maybe it should be good for you in a way that's also good for the family and the community. It should cover the domain of life. I mean, there's constraints on what you should regard as a value. But within those constraints, you have the choice. You have choice. Well, the thing is that people will carry a heavy load if they get to pick the goddamn load. So, and they think, well, I won't carry any load. It's like, okay, fine, but then you're like the sled dog that doesn't have a sled to pull. You're gonna tear pieces out of your own legs because you're bored.
I just want to turn back to the chat quickly. As somebody pointed out, all of a sudden the socialists in the chat, Zachy Forland says, there's talk and there's talk. The problem is that he spoke wrong information and provoked society that he was not part of them. Okay, first of all, Zach, I don't know what's wrong with your typing, because what you said didn't make sense. Charlie Kirk invited people to have conversations. He brought black people, gay people, and transgender people into his movement. He did not tell them that they were not part of him. He brought them into his movement. He had open conversations with anybody who would have a conversation, polite, respectful conversations with people who were willing to have polite and respectful conversations. You don't know that because you were reading propaganda or you're watching propaganda. You believe media sources that are lying to you, or you are being paid by them to come into this chat and spread the same lies that they have been spreading. Anybody can go and watch Charlie Kirk, watch his videos of him talking to people on campuses, not clips, not little clips you see from somewhere else, but you actually watch full conversations that he has with people, and you will see it. And look at Scott Pressler, transgender activist, Republican activist who's part of Charlie's coalition. Charlie might say, I don't agree with your choices in life, but that doesn't mean he excludes you from being a part of the movement, being a part of making America better. Jared says, do you think my 18-year-old daughter should be encouraged to go to college or something else like welding? I don't have great answers to that. I think that I can tell you what I tell my daughters. I have 2 daughters. Think about getting married and having kids. Work on that early. Don't wait. It doesn't get easier. I think I'm sorry, and I'd say the same thing. If I had boys, I would say the same thing. I say this to young men as well. Don't wait. I have friends, young friends, who I tell them, don't waste time. Older friends too. Like, I know you have something you're working on. This is important, and you need to get to this. You need to focus on this. You need to find a partner. The longer you wait, the harder it gets. And there's nothing more important. Say this, there's nothing more important you will do in life than have children. There's nothing that will bring you more joy. There's nothing that you will cherish more when you are at the end of life. That is the primary focus, I would say, to any young person. But as to going to college or something else like welding, I suppose it depends on what they're going to study in college. Like my older daughter studied musical theater, which a lot of people say is terrible, but it's what she's built for. And I don't think there's she could have just gone to Broadway and tried to audition, but it was a really good experience for her to go to this program. Younger daughter studying something that she really wants to study. If they have something they want to study that adds value and is worthwhile, and then frankly, going to college can be a good place to get an MRS degree. It's cold and it's brutal, but that's the way we talked about it when I was young, and I think it's still true. That the highest potential for meeting someone you're going to marry and have children with is probably in university. Candace Owens did what was truly a compelling show on her channel. Yeah, he brought Candace Owens. I don't think Candace is crazy, but he brought her in. I think he got rid of her eventually, but he brought her in. Colleges where good kids get themselves and each other into trouble. You get into trouble, but you learn a lot. Some people really don't understand free speech. I'm so glad my kids are older, have established careers, and are completely independent. Jimmy Lim says, those who say good things about Charlie's because they align the same core belief. People need to understand there's spiritual war between good versus evil. No, look, whatever your beliefs are, you don't have to agree with them on everything. Scott Pressler's transgender, and he supported Charlie. There's black people, there's gay people who supported Charlie, and Charlie supported them. This idea that, you know, Charlie was excluding people or you know, calling people out or dehumanizing people is absolutely 100% false. Okay, so let's continue with this clip. Sorry.
You know, people are pack animals. They need to pull against a weight. And that's not true for everyone. It's not true particularly, say, for low conscientious people. I mean, maybe they're open and creative or extroverted and some other things. But for the typical person, they'll eat themselves up unless they have a load. This is why there's such an opiate epidemic among dispossessed white middle-aged guys who are unemployed in the US. It's like they lose their job, they're done, right? They despise themselves. They develop chronic pain syndromes and depression, and the chronic pain is treated with opiates. It's like that's what we're doing. So, yeah, that's what it looks like to me. Is you have to, and it's so interesting to watch the young men when you talk to them about responsibility. They're so goddamn thrilled about it. It just blows me away. It's like, really? That's the counterculture. Grow the hell up and do something useful. Really? I could do that? Oh, I'm so excited by that idea. No one ever mentioned that before. It's like rights, 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 rights. Jesus, it's appalling. And I feel that that's deeply felt by the people who are coming out to listen to these sorts of things too. They've had enough of that. So, and they better have, because it's a non-productive mode of being. Responsibility, man. That's where the meaning in life is.
So it's interesting to hear him say that, because I'm somewhat removed from, you know, I graduated high school 41 years ago, right? I graduated college 37 years ago. And I think the societal expectation of all men and the message that was communicated to all men was, you better learn how to do something and you better start working. And like I said, I started working when I was 12 years old. I'm not saying I was, you know, I mean, if you think about it, a 12-year-old riding around a bicycle at 6 o'clock in the morning, and, you know, there wasn't really a lot of traffic where I lived, but riding a bicycle around carrying a heavy load of newspapers, literally carrying a heavy load of newspapers, right? I lifted a load. I moved a load from here to there. You know, I took on responsibility at the age of 12, and I took on more and more responsibility. And I think it was very common for my generation, Generation X. I'm like on the edge of Generation X and baby boomer. I joke that I identify as a boomer. And I'm from a small town, and I think we're a little behind. So I think in a sense, we still had boomer values when I was a kid, and I think we still have boomer values. We worked. That's what you did. You worked. And somewhere along the way, and my daughters, by the way, my daughters had summer jobs. My daughters worked. They earned a living. They not earned a living, but they worked. They worked for pay. One of them worked in like an ice cream store. One of them worked in a restaurant. They worked in camps. You know, as like camp counselors, that type of thing. My kids worked. Wow. Thank you, Mark, for deleting that comment. Mark Potashnik is one of our moderators, and somebody made a comment that Jordan Peterson is not a serious person. Are you watching this video? Are you seriously saying that, watching this video and saying this guy's not a serious, like, what are you watching? Where did you get that from? It's completely ridiculous. So I think that carrying a load, doing meaningful work is really important. And apparently it's something that has been taken away. That message has been lost in young people, in young men in particular. and the education system has been very negative in telling them about what their rights are, but not telling them what their responsibilities are. And I'm going with I'm somewhat removed from it. I can say I substituted in local schools in Boca Raton, Florida, and I think I saw some of it. It's almost like the school system was designed to protect the bad kids from the consequences of their actions, and that made school kind of hellish for the good kids. And I'm talking about like elite schools, some of the top public schools in Florida. And like the worst kids were coddled. And because they were free to misbehave, it made life miserable for the good kids. And I saw some pretty bad stuff. And I saw one kid elbow another kid in the head that would get any NFL player thrown out of a game. Not just NBA, but an NFL player would get thrown out of the game for this hit. And I pressed the magic white button, and an administrator came in, took the kids out in the hallway for 3 minutes, and brought them back in. Why is he coming back in? He just elbowed that kid in the head. He should be gone. They protect the worst kids from their misconduct, from the consequences of their misconduct. It's absolutely horrible. So, all right, let's move on. We got another clip for you.
There's this idea that hell is a bottomless pit, and that's because no matter how bad it is, some stupid son of a bitch like you could figure out a way to make it a lot worse. So you think, well, what do you do about that? Well, you accept it. That's what life is like. It's suffering. That's what the religious people have always said. Life is suffering.
This is where I showed you the poll before. This is a place where I was really struggling. My dark place was just obsessed with human suffering. The poll result was human cruelty. And I was less focused on human cruelty and just really focused on human suffering. That life. Jordan talks about this. If you follow him closely, he talks about suffering a lot, and he's talking about in this clip that suffering is a lot of what drove religion, a lot of what has driven life, and how do we deal with suffering? This was really deep for me for the last couple days of not being able to sleep. Last couple nights of not being able to sleep. During the day, getting through the day, I'm not thinking about it, but at night, haunting me, human suffering. On a personal level, on the level for others, just so many different ways that you see it. It's almost like the murderers were merciful because they died quickly, right? But there's people in helpless positions that just suffer, and the way that Jesus Christ was crucified and the crucifixions, and how you're helpless and you're just suffering for days on it. It really hurt, and that's a combination of cruelty and suffering, but just really was just an awful thought that I'm just trying to get past. And fortunately, life has gotten a lot better, and human suffering is greatly reduced in much of the world. I think pretty much almost all of the world, human suffering has gone down dramatically, and we're having the balance of joy and suffering has gotten a lot better. And I try to recognize how much, and I'm actually kind of committed to spreading more joy, thinking more about joy, but that suffering is still just it's still a bear. Anyway, let's keep going with Jordan.
Yes. Well, who wants to admit that? Well, just think about it. Well, so what do you do in the face of that suffering? Try to reduce it. Start with yourself. What good are you? Get yourself together, for Christ's sake, so that when your father dies, you're not whining away in a corner, and you can help plan the funeral, and you can stand up solidly so that people can rely on you.
That one hit home because my father died, that was more than 20 years ago, I think, and I flew home I was in Japan, I flew home for the funeral, and I was there for the funeral. I spoke, I comforted people, I took that on my shoulders. I took a lot on my shoulders, and I don't think twice about what I've taken on my shoulders and what I've done, and I definitely believe there are people who've done a lot more. But when you talk about a world of people who don't take on responsibility, I did, and I think the way he talks about this that's a really dark moment when your father dies, and you can cry about it, and you do cry about it, but you can also step up and help.
That's better. Don't be a damn victim. Of course you're a victim. Jesus, obviously. Put yourself together. And then maybe if you put yourself together, you know how to do that. You know what's wrong with you, if you'll admit it. There's a few things you could polish up a little bit. that you might even be able to manage in your insufficient present condition. And so you might shine yourself up a little bit, and then your eyes will be a little more open, then you can shine yourself up a little bit more, and then maybe you could bring your family together instead of having them be the hateful, spiteful, neurotic, infighting batch that you're like doomed to spend Christmas with.
Cute line there. You know, our troll Zach says you watch Andrew Tate motivation videos also. I actually have watched some Andrew Tate videos. I think one of the things that works, so there's people who are genuine like Jordan Peterson, who deliver value and deliver this positive message. And the truth is that Andrew Tate delivers some of this message similarly. The difference is that Andrew Tate is only doing it because it gets people in, and then he has a lot of bad stuff in his message as well, right? And he has a bad history of abusing women, and he has completely the wrong objectives and preaches completely the wrong objectives, where Jordan preaches the right objectives. But I actually have watched a lot of Andrew Tate videos, and you know, the idea of making yourself a better man is a good message. It's the good part of Andrew Tate's message. It is true. His reasons for making yourself a good man so you can get laid. I mean, it's not that it's bad to get laid, but you know, the real reason is to find a wife, to be a contributing member of society. And if you are that good man, then you will attract the right woman to be your wife and have children with. Not so you can bang 20 women, 20 hoes, right? That's not the reason, or 100 hoes or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I think that message is very common in the red pill, you know, dating community. Be a better man, or pretend to be a better man, is even the more fun one, is that you pretend to be a better man so you can attract women. And you know, attracting women is good, but you know, maybe there's value in being a good man for the sake of being a good man in its own, and by doing that, you attract good women.
So then you fix yourself up a little bit, kind of humbly, because, you know, God, you're a fixer-upper if there ever was one. And then you got to figure out, well, can you figure out how to make peace with your idiot brother? And probably not, because he's just as dumb as you, so how the hell are you going to manage that? And so then maybe you get somewhere that way, and your family's sort of functioning, and you find out, well, that kind of relieved a little bit of suffering, although it reduced the opportunities for spiteful revenge, and that's kind of a pain in the neck. And so then you get your family together a little bit, and you're a little clued in then, at least a bit, because you've done something difficult that's actually difficult. You're a little wiser, and so then maybe you could put a tentative finger out beyond the family and try to change some little thing without wrecking it. It's like, our society is complex, and we teach our students that they could just fix it. It's like, go fix a military helicopter and see how far you get with that. It's like, what are you going to do? You're like a chimp with a wrench. Whack! Oh, look, it's better. It's like, no, it's not better. Things are complicated, and to fix things is really hard. And you have to be like a golden tool to fix things, and you're not. So, and that's the other message of the West. It's like, how do you overcome the suffering of life? And I'm not saying it's only the message of the West. How do you overcome the suffering of life? Is be a better person. That's how you do it. Well, that's hard. It takes responsibility.
So yeah, I think his larger message to young people. I read his book, 12 Rules for Life. Highly recommend his book, 12 Rules for Life. Number one, take care of yourself. Make yourself a better person. That's as far as Andrew Tate goes, for Zach preaching Andrew Tate. Make yourself a better person. It's a good start. Here he talks about do what you can for your family. Andrew Tate never talks about making things better for your family. He moves on after this to, you know, make things better in your neighborhood, your community. Andrew Tate never talks about that stuff. Andrew Tate talks about make yourself better so you can make money. So you got make bank. What's the guy's name? Rich Cooper from Entrepreneurs in Cars, whatever. Make bank. You got money, then chicks will want you. No. Demonstrate that you're responsible. Do responsible things. Help your family out. I'll tell you, one of the probably the biggest thing about my wife, my lovely wife. She's beautiful. She's smart. She's fun. The biggest thing about her was when I saw her with her family. How caring she was towards her mother, towards her father, towards her nieces, towards her family in general. if you see a guy, if you're a woman and you see a guy and he's got money, but he treats his family like shit, how's he going to treat you? He doesn't have really solid friends. He and his friends treat each other like shit. How's he going to treat you? But if you see a guy who's takes care, like I took care of my mother. I mean, I didn't take care of her on a daily basis, but I made sure my mother was taken care of. Took care of her money for 30 years, and helped her in various ways for 30 years. Do they care about their parents? Do they care about their siblings? Do they care about their friends? Do they help people? And that's what makes a person a better man. Not because you got cash. Having cash is better than not having cash, but there's so much more to a person than that. Hi, Chris. Thanks for joining. Oh, next big future in the house. Very nice. Very nice. Great to see you. All right. So I'm going to move on to, I think I'm done with my clips. So this led to that poll question I asked, or another poll question I asked, what bothers you most? Existential dread, human suffering, human cruelty, or elevator music? I'm surprised elevator music didn't do better, but it was number 2. I thought human suffering would do better, but that would have more votes because I was stuck on human suffering, but human cruelty is pretty bad. And that's, where I was and where I was looking for Jordan Peterson to get me out of it, and where I knew the way out was to get stuff done, to focus on getting things done. And I started getting things done, getting more things done. And to turn political, there's going to be some politics here coming up. This is where we start to get political. This guy, Steven, did this post, and he made this point, and a lot of people have made this point, maybe he wasn't the first to say it, but after George Floyd died, what happened? We had raging, mostly peaceful AA, largely violent protests and riots all over. And he made this point, what if it was a prominent leftist who had been shot while speaking at a public event? Businesses today did not board up their windows in anticipation of angry riots and mass destruction. George Floyd happened, some other things happened. Businesses board up because they're worried that people are going to riot and they're going to destroy their stores. When you shoot a right-winger, quote right-winger, because Charlie Kirk wasn't really right-wing, I would say he was relatively moderate, certainly polite and not extreme and not an angry, screaming nut job. Beloved by many people, as you can see, and businesses didn't need to board themselves up to protect themselves from the people who went out and expressed their concern and their sorrow for his loss. Huge difference between the left and the right. I can't think of a bigger difference at the moment between the left and the right. Andrew says, if you want to see Peterson make a fool of himself, listen to his interview with Sam Harris. They argued for like an hour about the definition of the word true. I'm sorry that you're not deep enough to understand why that might be important. I'm not a huge fan of Sam Harris. I think that if you judge Jordan Peterson by one video where you think he was dumb, then you're probably not as bright as you think you are. And I just showed a bunch of clips of Jordan Peterson where I think anyone else watching can see how deep and thoughtful he is and how the things he talks about really matters to people. So everyone watching this video and seeing your comment is going to think you're an idiot, including me. If this is the way you do your analysis. Next big future, Brian says Grok 4.2 being the best and released by the end of this month. Next fundraise at $300 billion. And instead of $300 billion, Grok 5 by the end of the year. That pulls away $500 billion fundraise. Elon XAI shares $100 billion now to $250 billion. I'm not sure. I think you're saying the valuation will be $300 billion or $500 billion, and Elon's XAI shares will be $250 billion. So yeah, Elon will be very well off. Yeah, I think Sam Harris took himself down. The trigonometry video, the trigonometry interview really took Sam Harris down. He displayed extreme Trump derangement syndrome, and it was shocking. I mean, I had liked Sam Harris, and I was just I can't watch Sam Harris anymore. I literally can't watch him. What's wrong with elevator music?
Left or right, divide and conquer, nasty tactics by the political people to control us, all of them paid actors by the Freemasons and others. Zachy, we're people who are watching this chat think that you're one of the paid people. I don't know if you realize that, but if you look at your comments in this chat, the people who are watching this video and reading the chat think that you are one of the paid people who are here to divide us. So I think you ought to think about the comments you're making in the chat. Another little bit about Charlie. And this is part of what got me out of my dark place. My best takeaway from losing Charlie, and I know that he wasn't my friend. I watched a lot of him and I liked what he had to say, and I didn't agree with everything he said, but I liked a lot of what he had to say, and I loved the way he brought people in and was so polite and warm and friendly to people who disagreed with him, and patient and respectful. We don't know how much time we have. This is what we learned from Charlie. This is what we learned from Irina. We don't know how much time we have. Could be dead tomorrow. Could be dead in a week. Could be dead in a year. Do as much good as you can as quickly as possible. This relates to what Jordan Peterson is saying. Take responsibility on your shoulders, but don't just take a little. Take as much as you can as quickly as you can. I do a lot. I mean, I do a lot for my family. We are starting up a cafe and a co-working space, which I hope will help build community. I have to deal with all these bureaucratic things related to visas and stuff, and we're working on having children. Yes, I know that doesn't sound that unpleasant, but whatever. There's a lot of things that we're trying to put together in order to build a family and support the family and build a better life. And I still want to get that pod card done, and I've sort of made the commitment in my head. I'm going to have someone hired by November 1st. I'm not guaranteeing this, but I'm going to try harder to have somebody hired by November 1st so we can get a pod car prototype built. Not saying the pod car prototype will be built November 1st, but I have somebody hired by November 1st, ideally working by November 1st. Having the cafe and co-working space, which are already effectively usable now, is a place where someone can work. I can bring somebody in and there's a place for them to work. So it's like I need to, if anybody watching this video knows a young Thai engineer or a young Thai person who likes building things and has experience building things, have them reach out to me. I want somebody to come work for me. It's not a real job. It's not a company. But I'll pay, monthly, decent wage to help me build a toy. And then after we build the first one, we'll see if we can make a better one. At some point, it may become a company, it may become a real job. But it will pay as well or better than typical young engineers in Thailand. Young engineers in Thailand, university graduates make like $700, $800 a month. If I get somebody good, I'll pay $1,000 a month. I'm paying more than what they make. Do as much good as you can as quickly as possible. I've been getting some things done, but I'm going to step it up. And also I post a lot on the X platform. I post a lot here, and my YouTube videos are generally positive. But on X, I post a lot of criticism, a lot of argument. I joke with my wife that my job is arguing with people on X, and I do get paid for it. But I'm trying to post more positive things. Like my anniversary dinner and stuff, and just posted a video of myself and my nieces and wife and the beach and the ocean and stuff. Like trying to post some more positive stuff to spread more positivity and spread joy, because I think the counter to suffering is joy. The counter to suffering is responsibility, but the counter to suffering is also joy. The thing that makes us feel better. And I wanted to touch on this. This is part of what I've been arguing with. This is part of what's making me more and more angry. A couple people in the chat crapping on Charlie or crapping on Jordan Peterson. If you're trying to make me angry, you're really succeeding. So this is The Nation, which is basically a communist newspaper. They're basically the American Communist Party. I mean, that's probably not fair to the American Communist Party, but and I said the radical left is beyond redemption. They said Charlie Kirk was an unrepentant, racist, transphobe, homophobe, and misogynist so he loved his wife, he loved his daughters, he brought women into his movement, he brought gay people into his movement, he brought transgender people in his movement, he brought black people in his movement, he supported Israel. People call him an anti-Semite. He's one of the biggest supporters of Israel. Was he critical of some Jews? Yeah. Was he perfect? No. Did I love everything he said? No. Sometimes he said things that were true but uncomfortable. So when he said that, some very wealthy Jewish donors are contributing to what's destroying America, I didn't like it the way he said it, but he ain't wrong. He wasn't wrong. So just like the man was just murdered. And, there's this classic saying, don't speak ill of the dead. And the radical left came out and just started trashing Charlie after he died. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, and I think that the left, and I'm including the Democratic Party in general, is really destroying themselves for the next election and for many future elections. I've been so angry with them, the way they've been treating Elon, and now the way they're treating. This is one of the nicest guys you could see, and the way he dealt with people, the way he engaged with people, and the way they just. And there's more. There's this guy Pavlovitz. He's a Democratic mainstream guy. He says, sad to see so many people lionizing Charlie Kirk as a devoted, loving Christian. His murder is despicable and vile. But if you say his murder was wrong, but you're evil. Don't say but. Just stop. His murder is despicable and vile. That's it. That's all you had to say. But that doesn't erase the incalculable harm he has done. He talked. This is where the left. This is how the left invites violence. They equate talking to harm. If you say things that are bad, you're causing harm, and therefore you're justifying your left-wing lunatics killing people like Charlie. He did not do harm to anyone. He did not harm anyone. He talked. He engaged people in conversation. He supported politicians he agreed with. None of this is harm. The harm he's done to people of color, to women, to immigrants, to queer people, as well as to the minds of young white men. If you caught the Jordan Peterson video, the harm done to young white men is telling them that they're worthless, that they're the problem. Charlie Kirk and Jordan Peterson were telling young white men, you can take responsibility on your shoulders, you can start doing something valuable. That's harm? That's harm? Just absolutely, this is where the Democratic Party is just self-immolating. They're burning themselves into the ground. I'm terrible at making political predictions, but it's as if they didn't call, and there's another one here. There's Dave Rubin, who's a guy I followed for a long time. He's sort of a gay libertarian, something like that. Not a true libertarian, but sort of a gay libertarian. And Dave Rubin was on a show with Piers Morgan, which I don't know how people watch this stuff because they just yell. But he's talking, and he points out to Cenk Uygur all the times that Cenk's publication, The Young Turks, called people Nazis. And the Democrats are saying, hey, we need to tone down the rhetoric. And so Dave Rubin is like, well, are you going to delete your headlines or change your headlines where you're calling people Nazis? And Cenk Uygur just starts yelling at him to shut up. Like, this is the big thing for me. Don't tell me to tone down the rhetoric if you're going to call me a Nazi and a fascist and a racist. Okay? The way we tone down the rhetoric is the Democrats stop calling us Nazis and racists and fascists. Just stop. If you are a Democrat and you are watching this video and you have Democratic leaders that you are connected with, tell them this needs to stop. Because, and this is why I'm saying this is, James Carville has been saying this. James Carville is, a Clinton Democrat. I think that you are driving the middle to the right. You are driving the middle to the Republican side. You're driving them away from you. And if you succeed, or if you I think if your assassination attempt on Trump had succeeded, don't pretend that you're sad he survived. If your assassination attempt on Trump had succeeded, or I don't know at what point you're going to send the right off the edge. And if you create the civil war that you are pushing for, the right has more guns. We have more guns, we have more ammo, we have more training. You don't want a civil war with us. We don't want a civil war. We want you to stop calling us fascists, and we want you to stop motivating your nut jobs to shoot us. But this is almost what I said. Let's tone down the rhetoric, stop calling us Nazis, shut up, you Nazi. That's basically how the left is approaching this. That's how Pavlovitz approached it. Don't speak ill. It's one of those most basic principles that we're taught when we're kids. Don't speak ill of the dead. What are you doing? Look at that. What are you doing?
And there's tons of these. Well, he shouldn't have been shot, but no, stop. Stop. Just stop. Awful. Awful. All right, I said I was going to, let me just check the chat. I've got some positive stuff coming, but I'm going to leave it. Are the Tesla protests still on? As far as I know, we're not seeing Tesla protests in any meaningful way anymore. FTG says, you got to be kidding, the guy was evil. Just stop. Just like, you have no conscience. There's something very wrong with you. I thought it was awesome. What I must have missed something here in the chat. Have your wife publish on Thai local TikToks for your Thai engineer. I'm working on different ways of getting the message out to Thai people. Just invest in a solar powered EV and watch your money go up in smoke. What Elon already has nothing to do with his Tesla pay package. Yeah. Turning Point had 9,000 chapters. They've had requests for 18,000 more since the shooting. Couldn't a pod car just be a robotaxi with Starlink? Pod car, the point of the pod car is to be a single passenger vehicle, only one passenger, to make the most low cost, efficient, low cost per mile, easy to manufacture at scale vehicle that can serve as a robotaxi. Starlink is irrelevant. If you have inference in the car, and you don't need an internet connection. Sorry, I'm just looking in the chat here. All right, I'm losing the chat. I'm sorry. The chat is not moving around for me. Cenk was visibly cornered and tried to talk over Ruben painfully. Ruben had nailed him. He just totally nailed him. Yeah, Next Big Future Brian says, Ruben was reading the titles of Cenk titles back to him, and Cenk thought it would make Cenk a target. Titles were clearly inflaming violence. Cenk was acting like what Ruben was saying was making people want to go after Cenk. Like, all he had to say was, I'm gonna take a look at those titles and I'm gonna think about maybe we should stop calling people Nazis. That's all he had to say. Yeah, you made a good point there. I should really think about, like, could you actually? Yeah. Oh yeah. Jimmy Lim says, what do you think of that guy with the channel name Young Turks? People don't know the Young Turks are the people who committed the Armenian genocide. It's just amazing that, what's her name? Anna Kasparian, like, does his show. It's crazy. 14.4 says, how fast would a pod car travel? I think the goal is something like 60, 70 miles an hour maximum speed. We'll see. I think primarily it would be a city vehicle, but because most robotaxi rides are in cities, but ideally we would make it so we could go 70 miles an hour, let's say, 100 kilometers per hour, 120 kilometers per hour, something like that. Cenk pretends to be coming around. Cenk is not coming around. Not Your Mom says, I worry about Elon's safety. Elon actually addressed that. People asked Elon to increase security, and Elon said, good idea. And I think he's going to talk to the board. And I think Tesla I think he may have more security than people realize, but okay. So I want to get to something positive before we wrap up. Any word about the war they're going to start in Central Europe soon? I haven't heard anything about war in Central Europe. I think that the war that's coming is the civil war in the United States. If something goes really wrong, if the left pushes too far, the civil war that's coming, that the left seems to be pushing for a civil war with the right, which seems really dumb because the right is the one with the guns and the ammo and the training. Okay, a little bit of positive. August 23rd, my friend Ryan published a video interview with Jake Schneider, who is patient 7 with Neuralink. I believe Neuralink is up to 12. I'll see that slide in a minute. Hour and 30 minutes long, maybe? I forget how long it was. I started crying at 13 minutes. I cried at least one other time. The guy has Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. He's actually not as far gone as some other people. He's still able to walk a little bit, but he was having a lot of problems, and Neuralink's making a big difference for him. And I should show the next slide here. They're up to 12 people. Neuralink is up to 12 people around the world. And if you look at the curve, kiddies, the word of the day is exponential. Neuralink is looking at exponential growth.
If anybody can get me in on a Neuralink funding round, I will sell whatever I have to sell to get enough money to join a Neuralink funding round. I think Neuralink is going to be bigger than Tesla. I think Neuralink will be the biggest company in the world. I think they will have 100 million customers a year paying $10,000 a pop, and then 100 million new customers a year, and then every 3 years, 4 years or so, they're going to want an upgrade. The value. Mark says, blindsight will bring my right eye back. I don't think that if you have good vision in one eye, you will be a candidate for Neuralink in the near future. But as Neuralink scales, it's going to do a lot more than give you vision back. You know, when you get out 5-10 years, what they're going to learn about the brain and how they're going to be able to help not just people with problems, but people who are completely healthy to interact with their computer. Like once this gets to a certain point, then healthy people are going to want this. It'll help you sleep better. It'll help you communicate with computers faster, which is going to be necessary as AI starts to become very, very important. 14 says, do people using Neuralink take rejection medications? I don't think they need to. I believe that the way they effectively, the materials that they put around the threads prevent that kind of reaction. Brian asked, would I have a few minutes after the stream? Sure, Brian, of course. Always for you, my man. I think that the value that Neuralink is going to generate for people is just off the charts, and you're really going to see 100 million people a year getting Neuralinks. They're ahead of everyone. This is one of those things that people don't get. Like SpaceX is 10 years ahead of the competition, if not more. Right? Because nobody else has even tried to land an orbital rocket booster yet, and SpaceX has landed 500 over 10 years, and they're working on catching the boosters and much larger rockets, and there's so much more, and they've got this massive Starlink network going up, and everyone else is so far behind. And what people don't realize is in real world AI, what drives FSD and what's going to drive Optimus, everyone else is 5 to 10 years behind Tesla in that. And then you've got Neuralink, which there are people doing interesting things, but no one is close to what Neuralink is doing. No one is close. There's some interesting stuff. I'm not saying there isn't interesting stuff. There was just an interview I was listening to. Peter Attia interviewed a guy about a different approach to brain-machine interface that they put like a credit card, I think inside, but they didn't put threads down deep. Credit card size object that had a certain number of was able to read neurons to an extent, and they were able to get a woman who, I'm trying to remember what her problem was, but she was able to start thinking text and communicating text by thinking. And I don't know how much progress she's made on that, but that's pretty interesting. 14 says Blue Origin will try to land a booster soon. Hopefully they pull it off. We need more companies doing this. Blue Origin was going to try to land a booster on their last launch, but they aborted the landing. So they still didn't actually try to land a rocket booster. All right. I think we've gone way longer than I expected. I want to thank everybody for joining the chat and for listening and watching and all that. And thanks in particular, Mark Potocnik, for moderating the chat and taking care of the trolls. We had extra trolls this time. It was a little bit of a surprise to see the trolls, but I guess that happens when you get political. So, all right. Thanks everyone so much for watching. You all have a good night. Brian, send me a message or send me a link for like a Zoom or whatever it is you want to do, and we'll do that. Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.